Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We're going to wait just a few minutes, make sure everyone is able to join us. For those of you who are just joining us now, we're going to wait a few more seconds to let others join, and then we're going to start the webinar. All right, it's 3:01, so I think we can start. Hello and welcome to the 2021-2022 Better Buildings webinar series. This series is dedicated to bringing you the latest actionable insights from leading industry experts. This annual series is a chance to explore the topics, technologies, and trends that affect your organization, as well as efforts to accelerate energy efficiency adoption. Before we dive in, there are a few housekeeping items that I would like to cover. Please note that today's webinar will be recorded and archived on the Better Building Solutions Center, and we will follow up when today's recording and slides are made available. Next, attendees are in listen-only mode, meaning that your microphones are muted. And if you experience any issues with audio or visuals, please chat our support team through the Zoom channel at the bottom of the panel. Next slide. Wonderful. My name is Mariana Ejea Casalduc. I am your moderator. I am an ORISE Science, Technology, and Policy Fellow with the Building Technologies Office of the Department of Energy. I am the Better Buildings lead for the healthcare and hospitality sectors. Next slide. Wonderful. This is our agenda for today. First, we're going to hear from Nathan Yale from C+C about successful internal engagement through social marketing. Then we're going to hear from Jed Thompson from the University of Nebraska Medical Center about their Live Green Ambassadors program. And then Diane Crouch from Hawaiian Airlines is going to walk us through their behavior change and energy savings focused internal engagement efforts. And finally, we're going to wrap up with a Q&A discussion. Next slide. We will be using an interactive platform for Q&A polling and feedback called Slido. So please go to slido.com on your mobile device or by opening a new window in your internet browser. And today's event code is #DOE. If you would like to ask our panelists questions, please submit them at any time throughout the presentation. We will be answering your questions near the end of the session. You can select the thumbs up icons for questions that you like, which will result in the most popular questions moving to the top of the queue. Next slide. All right, if folks can move over to Slido and help us by responding to a few questions. Wonderful. First question, what sector are you from? Great. It's wonderful to see a strong showing from our industrial and manufacturing sector. You can also see that higher education and K through 12 are pretty well represented. All right. We want to go to the next poll. Next poll reads, what type of engagement strategies have you employed in your organization? Treasure hunts? None yet, and that's all right. We're here to learn a lot. Newsletters, social media, raffles, lunch and learns. webinars, emails, face-to-face meetings, posters, webinars and newsletters seem to be pretty common strategies. Wonderful. All right, thank you all for that. Let's close out Slido and move on to our next slide. All right, let's introduce our speakers. Nathan Yale is an account supervisor at C+C, a marketing and communications agency based in Seattle. Nathan has led marketing, branding, PR, media relations, and stakeholder engagement projects for clients such as Washington State's Department of Health and Ecology, Google, Alaskan Airlines, and others. Most importantly for today, Nathan manages communications and PR for DOE's Better Buildings initiative. Our second speaker is Jed Thompson. Jed has been an energy engineer at UNMC for 6 years. UNMC has been a Better Buildings Challenge partner since 2016, committing 6.5 million square feet to a 20% reduction in energy intensity. UNMC has also committed to becoming carbon neutral by 2030 and maintains similar ambitions in regards to waste reduction, transportation, and recycling. UNMC also participates in water reduction, and we're proud to congratulate them on achieving a Better Buildings goal of 23% reduction in water intensity since 2016. Diane Crouch is a Senior Executive Assistant of Operations at Hawaiian Airlines. Her primary role is to support the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, as well as the operation groups he oversees. In 2018, Hawaiian Airlines partnered with Hawaii Energy, a ratepayer-funded energy conservation company, and Diane was appointed as the energy champion for Hawaiian Airlines and continues to grow this initiative by focusing on behavioral change. Diane also serves as the employee engagement officer for the company's sustainability employee research group, which has over 100 members. Thank you to you all for being here with us today. Next slide. And with that, I'll hand it off to Nathan Yale, who's going to discuss successful internal engagement through social marketing. Take it away, Nathan.
Thank you, Mariana. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here to talk about using social marketing principles for successful internal engagement strategies for energy efficiency, for sustainability, for any of those initiatives. Next slide. So I wanted to start off with this poll real quick. Just a quick definition in a couple words. What is social marketing? So we'll jump back over to Slido briefly. And as responses come in, we'll see another word cloud. Social media, selling an idea, peer pressure. All right, that can work. Telling stories, sharing your vision, influencers. Peer pressure, getting a lot of attention there. Social media, leading by example, communication, word of mouth, engaging people, collaboration, influencers and social media still rising to the top. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I think that's probably good. We can jump back to the slide deck, make sure we get through everything here. Marketing via people, I like that one. Education, awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Yeah, those are great ideas. Some tactics, some definitions, really good. In general, social marketing is behavior change for social good. Social marketing helps people change their behaviors, but it's important to note that it's not the only thing that can get people to change their behaviors. For example, education and awareness alone for most people aren't going to get them to change their behaviors. And social media, we often get the answer that social marketing is just using social media. That can be a great tactic for social marketing, but it does go a little broader than that. And people do change their behaviors when the benefit to doing so outweighs the barriers to changing their behavior. So next slide. And we can think about most audience groups along this bell curve. So on the far left here, we have the show me group. This is the small group of people for whom you can just educate them. You can just use awareness and they'll change their behavior. Simply telling them this is the right thing to do is going to get them to do it. And on the far right, on the other hand, we have the make me group. For these folks, a law is required for them to do the action. Maybe you need a punishment too, like a fine, to actually get them to do your desired action. But most people fall into this middle group, the help me group. And this is the group for which social marketing is best tailored. These folks are really close to doing your desired action. They just need a little push. They just need a barrier removed, or they need a motivator added, and they're going to be ready and willing to do your behavior. And an example of this we can think of is cleaning up pet waste at a park. So for the show me group, all they need is a sign maybe in the park saying, please clean up your pet waste, or maybe with a note about how it's good for the environment. On the other hand, the make me group, they need a law. They need a sign that says there's a fine. If you don't pick up your pet waste, they need enforcement sometimes. But a lot of people are really close to picking up their pet waste in the park. They just need it to be a little easier. So the social marketing tactic here could be you put pet waste bags right below that sign, right? And I'm sure we've all seen that in parks. If you just make it a little easier for most people to do it, again, nearly 70% of people will do that desired action. Next slide. And social marketing does have a large formal process. I'm sure some of you have seen this before. These 10 steps are designed to do a very robust social marketing process, but today we're not going to focus on all of these. Next slide. We're going to focus on just 5. And the 2 at the beginning we're skipping are mostly to assess the situation. There are market research, it's focus groups, maybe surveys, to figure out the situation you're starting from. But for today, for thinking about organizational engagement, sustainability, energy efficiency, water efficiency, we're going to talk about just these 5. Next slide. Number 1, you're going to figure out who you're talking to. Number 2, you're going to set your objectives and goals and figure out how you're going to measure if it worked. Number 3, you're going to understand the barriers and motivators for that audience you chose. Number 4, we're going to develop the 4 Ps, which I'll get into. And then lastly, you want to evaluate and see if it worked. Next slide. So the first step here is to select your priority audiences. This is the group of people you're trying to reach. And ideally, this group of people is all in the show me category. They're really close to doing that behavior change that you want. They're just not yet for some reason. Maybe you don't know why yet, but you have this group of people. Next slide. And as I go through each of these 5 steps, I'm going to be using an example, which hopefully will be relevant again one day, which is getting people out of single occupancy cars on their commute to work. So let's say you have a campaign in your office, your organization, to reduce the number of drive alone trips to work. And so in this case, maybe your priority audience is people who drive to work but could take transit, right? People who feasibly could take transit, but they're just not right now. Next slide. So next, you want to set your behavior change objectives and goals. You want to figure out what you're actually trying to do. And within that goal, you want to figure out how you're going to measure whether it worked and make sure you have the ability to actually gather that data. So you want this goal to be measurable and specific. So one example in our commute case is reduce the number of drive alone trips to work by 20% after 30 days. And you're going to do this by a self-reported commute survey at day 0 and day 30. Now, we know people are notoriously bad at reporting theoreticals. People are really bad at what if questions. They're bad at predicting their behavior. But if we can use a survey that's just like, how did you commute to work over the past 5 days, or over the past 3 days, and do that at the beginning and end of our campaign, we can get an accurate picture of how it worked. Next slide. And once you have your goal and what you're going to measure, you want to understand the barriers and motivators of your audience. Why aren't people doing this already? Are there barriers we can remove? And what motivators or incentives can we add to get people to do this? And you can start with a brainstorm list. And if you have time to do actual research, whether it's informal conversations or quantitative surveys, that's great. But some examples in the commute case are the barriers. Maybe transit just takes too long. People find it inconvenient, or there's no transit near them. Maybe if you're actually trying to have people carpool or bike to work or walk to work more to get people out of their single occupancy cars, maybe they don't know who they can carpool with. Maybe they don't know transit schedules, or they're just not even aware that transit exists where they are. On the other hand, think about a lot of the motivators you can use to get people to do this behavior. You could explain the benefits of getting out of your car, getting out of sitting in traffic behind the wheel twice a day. right? Maybe that's de-stressing, maybe you can multitask, reduce gas costs. Social norming is also a really powerful tool. That was one of the word cloud items I saw. If you can create social norms around your positive social good behavior, it does a lot to get more people on board. So maybe you create a friendly office competition, or you reduce the barriers to transit and to carpooling in various ways, which I'll get into on the next slide. Next, this is where you're really developing the core of your campaign. This is what you're actually going to do to intervene and get people to commit to the new action. And the 4 Ps are product, place, price, and promotion. Now, you don't need all 4 of these, maybe just 1 or 2, depends on your level of effort and your budget. But a product is, can you provide a product or a service that will motivate action? Place is, are you making sure you're intervening in a location where it's most convenient for your audience to change their behavior? Price, can you reduce the dollar cost of this action? And promotion, can you make it fun or rewarding? Can you brand the effort in some way, or just make it, more exciting for people to participate in your campaign? And so there are some examples here at the bottom for the commute. A product, maybe you provide transit schedules and maps to reduce that barrier of people not knowing where or when the transit exists. Maybe you provide a transit pass so that people can load money onto it. They don't have to go through the process of finding the pass themselves. Maybe you have reserved carpool parking spaces at the office, or you create a carpool group thread or map for people who are interested in that. Or again, you could use social norming to distribute stickers or buttons or something like that for folks who are participating. Place, obviously you want to make it convenient. People are coming into the office. You want to have this campaign be front and center when they get there. Maybe you provide convenient bike storage at the office for folks who want to get out of their cars by biking. And for price, well, of course, you can provide a paid transit pass, right? If that's a big barrier for folks, then that will certainly help people get out of their cars and reduce the gas costs. Or if you have paid parking at your office, maybe you reduce that cost for carpoolers. And lastly, for a promotion, you could have a friendly office competition that offers prizes. You could have a pledge. Pledges are surprisingly effective at getting people to change their behavior. You could have a scoreboard, whether virtual or in office, showing progress. And finally, if you have the time and budget, you could brand the effort, right, to make it even more fun. Next slide. And the last step here is you want to figure out if it worked, right? Was this effort successful? Who did you reach? Who acted? And which motivators worked best? For example, maybe we found that drive-alone commute trips were reduced by 40% over 30 days, and that people without kids and people with single-seat trips acted. So people only needed 1 bus or 1 train to get to the office. Those are the folks that actually changed their behavior. Found that the best motivators were the paid transit pass and the competition. And then we want to make sure we reevaluate again after, say, 6 months or a year to see if these changes stuck. Next slide. So once more, these are the 5 social marketing steps that can be employed to create behavior change campaigns in the office, whether it's engaging your organization on energy efficiency, water efficiency, other sustainability practices. But they are certainly very powerful steps in thinking about how you're going to create an effective campaign. And my last slide is just contact info. If you have any questions about social marketing or communications for efficiency or better buildings in particular, please feel welcome to reach out. I think that's my time.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nathan. Now we're going to hear from Jed. Jed is going to walk us through the University of Nebraska Medical Center's strategy and how they employ unique internal engagement solutions to target specific teams and programs. Thanks, Jed.
Hello, as mentioned, my name is Jed Thompson. I work for next slide. I work for University of Nebraska Medical Center. I'm an energy engineer there, and I would like to talk about our Live Green Ambassador program. Next slide. So the University of Nebraska Medical Center is a medical college, and we partner with the Nebraska Medicine, which is a large hospital here, and it has many outlying clinics around the area. We also have a small nursing college on our campus that we help manage, and all in all, we try to manage about 8 million square feet there. We employ over 9,000 employees, and we also have about 4,247 students this year, and as well as all the patients that come in, all the partners that come in, would help us keep moving as an organization. So we have a lot of different space in that area. We've got the hospital space, we've got a lot of research space, office space, classroom, and each one of those spaces requires kind of a unique strategies to manage sustainability in that area. Next slide. So to handle that area, we do our best to start each of these programs. To do that, we've set a goal of net zero by 2030, and we're trying to track our progress with that. And we've also got many different organizations trying to push their own little programs. We've got pretty robust recycling programs with explanations on how we manage each type of recycling and do our best to get our employees and students to get on board. We've got the Parking Services has joined us with trying to get better flex parking for people who don't always drive to work, make it easier for Parking Services to manage that. We've also got commuting and carpooling programs in place for people who would take advantage of that. There's also pretty robust curtailment systems on campus, as well as all of our building automation systems trying to do whatever they can to decrease consumption of energy. So each of these programs is coming from a different area. We've got our Office of Sustainability, we've got a lot of student organizations, we've got our building automation systems called our Smart Buildings Group, Parking Services, and many others. Next slide. So what we came up with when we were brainstorming this is something that we could get everyone on board. So how do we get everyone aware of what each of these systems in place, and how do we ultimately achieve our net zero by 2030 goal? When we were brainstorming this, we wanted something that was open and easy to join, available to everyone. We wanted easy access to information, and one of the more important things was decentralized. So each organization that's managing their own programs kind of gets tunnel vision on what they want the sustainability goals to be. So we wanted to keep something open to everyone, and there was no one having their kind of vision overcrowding the others. Next slide. So what we came up with is the Live Green Ambassador Program, and our purpose too is to engage campus personnel who are passionate about sustainability to support and lead the organization towards a culture of sustainability and help the Med Center achieve its goals. Next slide. To do this, we employ ambassadors from all the different areas that they may come from to be a voice for the sustainability goals in that area. We are open to anyone who wants to join, but we do try to pick people who are specializing into a certain area. You can apply, and it really only asks 3 questions: is who are you? What are your how passionate are you about sustainability, and who do you have access to share this information with? And from there, we try to get them to attend 1 workshop training session per year, and then push those models of sustainability to their peers. And then we provide them to share information with those peers, and also listen to those colleagues and peers for feedback that we can convey back to our Office of Sustainability to spread out to other areas, if you will. Next slide. So in that ambassador program, they've got tools in their belt, are including this website we set up for them, which shares all that information. There's a yearly retreat allowing those ambassadors to get together and share experiences, to do a little training and strategize for the future. We've also got a newsletter, which allows us to share some of our achievements, some of our goals, and some of that direction on how we can achieve those sustainability goals. And then we also have anyone who requests it can request the ambassadors to get someone in to talk about the sustainability goals in those areas. This has been helpful to spread the message out. And finally, we do a survey. We try to do it once a year, but as best as we can, but we survey everyone we have, and then we request the ambassadors to encourage people to partake in that survey, since they're the ones out talking to people. You can only do so much by sending out an email and requesting it. So we kind of just send the ambassadors out there to really get people to really apply and fill out that survey, which has been really helpful. And through these methods, we can hopefully spread that sustainability goals. Next slide. So our success has come in many different ways, but like just three of the points that we've had is one of the student organizations, the Healthy Earth Alliance, promotes their own social media sites, and Live Green events can be shared on their sites, as well as their events can be shared on the Live Green sites. So they do a lot of community outreach with sustainable food and community gardens, and all that information can be shared on our sites, as well as pushing the Live Green events and the seminars and speeches out to their site, their social media sites, which has been helpful in spreading messages. Another example is that curtailment program I'm speaking of, where we try to cut our peak load. We're on public power, so we have a pretty aggressive program for that. And it was resulted in getting a lot of people complaining because it's cold in the morning and then it gets hot in the middle of the day. One of the things that the ambassadors did is they went out and they explained why we did the program, how it's helpful, and what they could do to be more comfortable in those areas. And it resulted in fewer complaints, because our building managers are more engineers and they don't consider the human aspect. So it was real helpful to have someone who manages that side have a different perspective and have a different way of spreading the message instead of just dealing with complaints. There's also that survey I spoke of, which the latest one was on transport and commutes. So the completion score of 57% is not what we wanted it to be, but it was better than it has been in the past. And that survey is, it's long. And so getting people to complete it was a little more difficult. So completion score of 57 means that we had approximately 57% of the people to complete every question on that test, on that survey. So that's our goal, to get better, but we're doing okay. And in that survey, we found out that 24% of people were using active transport in the form of carpooling, biking, walking, public transportation on the commute. So hopefully our programs are working. And that's ultimately what the goal of the ambassadors is to connect the people in our organization to the tools and programs we have in place to achieve those sustainability goals. And next slide. And so that's our goals for the future, and that's the success we've had. We've been partnering with Virtus on this and hope to see improvement in the future. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jed. Before I move on to our next speaker, I want to quickly remind our audience to send in your questions through slido.com using the event code #DOE. We look forward to addressing all of your questions at the end of the session. And now we're going to hear from our final speaker, Diane Crouch. Diane is going to talk to us about how Hawaiian Airlines is driving behavior change by encouraging energy savings best practices in the office and at home. Take it away, Diane. Thank you.
Aloha. Thank you so much for allowing us to participate in this discussion today. Now, even though our primary assets are aircraft that don't usually consume a lot of electricity, unlike buildings, we're very committed to doing everything to run as efficient as we can throughout our operation where we can control. Reducing our energy consumption not only helps our expenses, but it also helps our emissions, which for an island-based employer is something that we're always mindful of. Next slide. Why are we focusing on internal engagement? In 2018, we partnered with Hawaii Energy, a ratepayer-funded program whose intent is to support businesses in lowering energy use. As a first activity, we conducted a treasure hunt at our corporate office. The treasure hunt was used to identify areas to help make our offices more energy efficient. Our corporate office had recently been renovated a couple of years prior, so it was found to be pretty energy efficient already. So Hawaii Energy recommended we work on behavioral changes in the office. We started off small in 2019 with an energy workshop for all employees to attend. We had different speakers from local organizations come to speak to our employees about energy savings. In 2020, COVID happened, and we were all directed to work from home for most of the year. As 2021 rolled around, we realized we might still be working from home for a while, but we didn't want employees to lose sight of our energy and sustainability goals. So we started to do employee engagement activities that employees could participate in virtually. We were inspired to the Hawaii Energy Strategic Energy Management Cohort Workshops. In these workshops, we discussed different case studies and the effect on energy consumption in the workplace with behavioral changes. Next slide. Our first activity to kick off the year was an Earth Day poster contest. We encouraged employees and their families to participate. We had 3 different categories: 10 and under, 11 through 17 years, and 18 years and over. We selected a winner for each category, and each winner received swag from our logo store's newly launched sustainability collection. Next slide. These were the winners from each category of our Earth Day poster contest. We had a lot of really great entries, and the winners were definitely hard to choose from. Next slide. To kick off the summer, we launched an energy savings tip for the summer contest. Employees were asked to submit their top 3 energy saving tips that they implement at home. Each employee entry was put into a raffle to win a 2-night stay at the Alohilani Resort. Alohilani is one of our fellow members of the Hawaii Energy Strategic Energy Management cohort, and we partnered with them to do a prize trade. We traded round-trip neighbor island tickets for 2 for a 2-night stay at their beautiful resort in Waikiki. We received 61 entries and have shared all the great ideas with our entire company in hopes that they can use some of the tips in their homes. Next slide. We shared all the energy saving ideas on our internal SharePoint site and sent them out in our corporate communications. The idea in sharing these tips and having people practice these at in their home is that we hope that they would bring some of their good habits back to the office when we fully reopen our offices. We had lots of really creative tips submitted, varying from the normal turn off the lights when you leave a room or take timed showers, to more creative tips like having a date night by candlelight, or unplug the family from all devices for an hour in the evening and have a good family time. Next slide. In keeping with the theme of energy saving tips, we launched a video with energy saving tips for the office. This video is shared in break rooms, coffee areas, as well as our internal employee website. So we're going to give you a preview of what our video looks like now. Also, as part of the employee engagement efforts, we have a sustainability employee resource group. It's kind of like an extracurricular activity group that meets monthly to discuss different sustainability topics. Our energy conservation efforts play a large role in this group, and we brainstorm and communicate a lot of our ideas through this channel. We currently have over 100 employees that are part of this group. Next slide. To end 2021's employee engagement activities, we will launch a reduce, reuse, and recycle aircraft contest. We'll have different categories for winners ranging from best design to farthest flight. We're really looking forward to this final activity for the year and think that this would be a really fun way to end a pretty weird year. Next slide. In 2022, we plan to grow our employee engagement activities even more. The hope is that we'll be back in the office more regular in 2022. When we're back in the office, we'll aim for more measurable activities like The Biggest Loser, but instead of dropping weight, we'll be dropping energy consumption by floor. But of course, we'll remain flexible and ride this pandemic wave until the very end and adapt wherever necessary. The main thing is we're starting to talk about it and make it part of our corporate culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane, and to all of our panelists. We're now going to transition over to Q&A. So if you haven't already, please join us at slido.com and input the event code #DOE to submit and upvote questions. Wonderful. Our first question reads, Nathan, how can I conduct informal research to inform my internal engagement strategies without using surveys? And Diane and Jed, you guys can rejoin with camera.
Yeah, I'll start here, but I'm also open if Diane and Jed have ways they've done this, that'd be awesome too. The main one I'm thinking of is just using, you can call them interviews, you can also just call them conversations. Maybe having a little bit of a script or a conversation guide of how that goes. And, it does depend on the size of your audience and how big of a sample group you want to get to, try to approach statistical significance there. But that is a really good way to ask a lot of questions, and you can really dig into barriers and motivators using one-on-one conversations.
Thanks, Nathan. Definitely starting the dialogue in the first place is definitely a really important first step. Our next question is for Diane, and it reads, Diane, can you recommend activities for smaller companies under 100 people?
Hi. So I think a lot of the activities, as long as you can make it like a challenge, people seem to like to challenge each other. So if you can make it fun in a way that you can make it competitive amongst your coworkers or your peers, that always seems to get people really excited about participating in activities, no matter what you're doing.
Wonderful. Thanks, Diane. Jed, the next two questions are for you. What is Shut the Sash?
So Shut the Sash was a program that we were raising awareness on the energy savings in fume hoods. So we put stickers on all of our sashes. We tried our best to implement alarms, occupancy alarms on each of the sashes, and get people to close their fume hood sashes. We did okay, but we can do better. And we will probably be pushing that forward. And as far as the ambassador program, we have a person who manages the Office of Sustainability who mainly works with that ambassador program. They've got a couple interns there, but give or take, depending on the year. And we do partner with Virtus, and they manage the website and help out with some of the talks. But a lot of it is just connecting people with their individual energy saving programs or sustainability programs and communicating that to getting them to actually give the talk to the area that it was requested in.
Awesome. Thanks, Jed. So I'm going to go to another question for Diane. Diane, how do you encourage folks to get involved in the employee resource group? Did you see more or less participation during COVID?
So for our employee resource group, we were meeting maybe once every couple of months, or at first it was once a month, and it kind of went to once every couple of months when we had to do everything virtually. But we did a lot of things like bringing in local companies to talk about sustainability efforts around the island. So that really attracted a lot more engagement with our group. So people were really interested to know what other companies are doing, what kind of sustainability efforts other companies were doing. We also do a lot of like beach cleanups and things where you're like planting plants. So especially during COVID, when we're supposed to be staying at home, it was kind of a nice way so that you could actually see people in person, but socially distance and be in a safe area.
Awesome. Thanks, Diane. I think Jed already answered that question about the Live Green Ambassadors program, but Jed, Robin has a question about UNMC's net zero energy goal and any emissions-based goals. So if you want to talk about your carbon neutrality initiative, that would be great as well.
So we are trying to be carbon neutral by 2030. It's going to be a difficult goal for a hospital, but that's both in energy and emissions. And I mean, there's a lot of overlap between the two of them. So we'll try, doing our best.
All right, awesome, Jed. On the last presentation, that was Diane. How do you measure the energy savings by floor? And did you establish a baseline?
So this is one that we haven't yet started. We're planning to start this in 2022 when we're back in the office. The thing about our office, our corporate office, it's a bit of a unique atmosphere. It's all open office concepts, so no one's really quite in an actual office room. So it is going to be a little difficult because everything flows together, but we do have different meters for each floor. And we are going to have kind of like we are going to baseline it based on the 2019 numbers. And we're going to have to figure out kind of the curve in which we can use the baseline at.
Wonderful, thanks, Diane. The next question reads, I find it difficult to get people's time away from their everyday job and get manager permission to participate in our green team. How can you encourage people to take extra time to volunteer and get managerial support? That's a really great question. I think everyone can, chime in by sharing, what has been their most successful strategy in terms of, engaging different teams and getting folks excited and involved. So Nathan, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess I'll pick one thing to say, which is we're actually working on a blog right now, the Better Buildings Be blog, if you want to check that out. It's not up yet, but I'm talking about how to make the business case for energy efficiency strategies. And one of the main ways to do that, at least tackling the managerial support part of this question, is putting potential energy savings or into dollar terms, right, into financial terms. And there are many tools online that you can use for free to do that. But any way you can frame up energy savings in the language that that the C-suite is speaking is really useful in getting those programs started or expanded.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. Jed, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so one of the things that we found helpful is to pose a question and tie in what that department needs and those people need to support their role, and see how it aligns with sustainability goals. So for example, our parking services were short parking spaces. So they implemented the flex parking program. So not everyone needed a parking pass, so they could justify utilizing the parking space a little better when some of the parking lots didn't fill up. Another example is just our building automations, our smart buildings group, which handles building automation. They make their money by money saved. Any money saved on the bills, they get to roll over into more effective sustainability initiatives on campus through the mechanical systems. And if you can pose how a program will support your own goals, I find that to be really helpful. Safety, for example, some of the things we're doing with fume hoods also improve the safety of those fume hoods. Some of those safety initiatives are also in line with sustainability. So if you can just find where those two meet, it's really helpful.
Awesome. Diane, would you like to comment?
Yeah, sure. I think as far as volunteering extra time, I know Hawaiian Airlines were very family oriented. So including the family in a lot of the volunteer efforts or any of these sustainability efforts always gets a lot more people involved. If you're able to bring your kids to the beach to do a beach cleanup, if the kids can participate in the Earth Day poster contest, employees are definitely more engaged if they can also include their family. So they're not feeling like they're taking away from their work-life balance.
Awesome. Thanks, Diane. Moving on to the next question. It reads, I work for a tire manufacturing facility. Our electricity bill is approximately $900,000 per month. What advice do you have for a large manufacturing facility? I'm going to leave that one open. Maybe Nathan or Jed, since hospitals tend to be pretty energy intensive and there's a lot of staff to manage. Whoever wants to go first.
Well, having only seen these things from the comm side, I will just plug, I know treasure hunts came up in one of the slide polls at the beginning, and we have seen those be very successful on the Better Plants industrial side of the program. And there are resources on the Solution Center about implementing treasure hunts at large facilities. So I would definitely suggest checking that out.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan.
Actually, I'll just add, and for those who don't know what treasure hunt is, they can look in a few different ways, but essentially it's engaging a lot of folks who actually work on the floor of a plant to identify a bunch of different places where maybe energy can be saved, or where something could be replaced or updated, or a system could be optimized.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. Jed, do you want to comment?
Similar to what I mentioned before, with the money, our building automation system group, Smart Buildings group, exists because we started out with small, where we could find a little money to fix something, and any money saved on those energy bills was able to snowball into the next project. And over time, if you can get your organization to maybe start small like that, and you'll find money to promote that. And it's a long-term plan, but it's something that worked for us, and it's something that might work for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jed. Diane, I want to leave a little bit of space just in case you have something to add here.
No, I just agree with the treasure hunt. I think that makes a huge impact in identifying the areas that you can improve on. I know that helped us with when Hawaii Energy conducted the treasure hunt within our corporate offices. We were able to kind of identify the low-hanging fruit first, and then come up with larger ideas later.
Awesome. Thanks, Diane. All right. I think we already talked a little bit about encouraging folks, but if we want to talk maybe more about tangible incentives and rewards, one last time to address this next question that reads, what type of incentives are you offering, and what's been the most effective?
Well, for Hawaiian Airlines, when we did that energy saving tips, when we didn't announce what the prize was, the participation was pretty low. Once we announced the prize to have a staycation at a nice resort in Waikiki, it went up significantly. So I think, and we tried to be creative too in the way that we come up with these prizes, so that we're not spending a whole lot of money really for the program, but still coming up with things that encourage the sustainability amongst our island leaders, and just being able to let people enjoy Hawaii.
Awesome. Thanks, Diane. Moving on to the next question, which is for everyone. What types of engagement platforms like apps, either Microsoft Forms, SurveyMonkey, et cetera, do you find to be, oh, I lost the question. But it's probably just a general question on applications that you guys use to engage with folks. So, oh, there he goes. Which ones do you find are more successful with connecting with internal, external audiences? So both. And did one have higher results than the other?
I'll start. I think the best place to start on this is just thinking about where a given audience is already receiving information. So if it's in the office, probably email. Maybe it's a chat feature. But if it's an external audience, is this a group that uses Facebook a lot or uses Instagram or Twitter a lot? Reaching them there. But using a combination is also great too, because the more times people see the message, the more likely they are going to actually internalize it and then maybe act on it.
Awesome. Jed and Diane.
At Hawaiian Airlines, we use Microsoft Teams. So we use a lot of Microsoft Forms for signups and to gather feedback. And then we also use the SharePoint sites to kind of make it like an internal Facebook page. And then there's the chat feature through that. So we're dropping in different articles in there and then uploading it onto the SharePoint site. So that's what we use.
Awesome. Thank you, Diane.
We use SurveyMonkey for all of our surveys, but I can't say that we can compare it to external audiences since we've only surveyed students and faculty. So.
Wonderful. Then moving on to the next question, Jed and Diane, do your respective programs have budget? Do you use that on incentives for employees to participate or on projects for campus? For example, LED retrofits, or both? So Diane, if you would like to start.
So the actual employee engagement programs don't necessarily have a budget right now. Like I said, we try to get as creative as we can to offer different incentive prizes for it. The year in 2019, when we were doing the workshops, those were actually, we partnered with Hawaii Energy. So they, I guess you could say, donated their time to come and speak to our employees. And then we provided some snacks and things like that to get people to come into the workshop. But our budget is pretty minimal right now. Hopefully for the 2022 employee engagement activities, we'll have a little bit more of a budget to work with, and we can offer bigger prizes.
Awesome. Thanks, Diane. Jed?
So our budget's based on our 2012 energy bills. So when we started, we had our basic funding from that year, and any energy we save got rolled over into next year's budget for our group. And I think of our office sustainability has a little hand in that, and our smart buildings group is paid out of that. And every year that we save a little more on our energy budget, we get to use that for LED projects, for system automation projects, and so on.
Awesome. Thanks, Jed. And then we have a couple of questions that are beyond the scope of this conversation here, but maybe Diane and Jed can comment on this question that reads, what are each of your target energy use intensity goals for your buildings and campuses? You can share your Better Buildings goals.
So UNMC's goals are mostly, we just take the national averages, the EUI numbers that we get from Better Buildings Challenge and the Energy Star, and use those as a where to improve. Even those goals are just kind of goal. We use those more as a way to detect problem areas and where we should be putting our money to where we get the most bang for our buck. But in general, you can't get your EUIs low enough. So I guess that's how we do that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jed.
So our Better Buildings Challenge goal was to reduce the energy consumption across our portfolio of office buildings down to reduce by 20% in the next 10 years. And we did have a baseline. So we collected all of the data from the different buildings, and we baselined it off of, I think we baselined it off of 2018. And so we're working towards that.
All right. Awesome. So we only have 7 minutes left, so I'm going to wrap up Q&A. Thank you, Diane, Nathan, and Jed, so much for all of your answers and input. We can go to the next slide. All right. So this webinar is a part of the 2021-2022 Better Buildings webinar series. And as you can see, we have a great lineup of presentations through April. So if you're interested in joining, please visit the Better Buildings Solutions Center to learn more and register. Next slide. Wonderful. We hope that you will all join us for next Tuesday, September 21st, for our next webinar titled Kick the Tires, Understanding the Role of R&D in the Deployment of Building Energy Technologies. You can join this webinar to learn more about DOE's ongoing efforts and opportunities to become more involved in deploying new energy saving technologies in your building. Next slide. Great. And if you're interested in learning more about the topics discussed today, I encourage you to download our additional resources handout from the Zoom chat box. The handout contains links to resources from Better Buildings and our speakers. Next slide. And with that, I'd like to thank our panelists very much for taking the time to be with us today. Feel free to contact our presenters directly with additional questions, or if you couldn't get to your question during the Q&A period. I encourage you all to follow Better Buildings on LinkedIn and Twitter for all of the latest news. You can find our handles by their respective icons on the left half of the slide. And you will receive an email notice when today's recordings, slides, and transcripts are available on the Better Building Solutions Center. Thank you, everyone.